and in our systems, in our values, one of the biggest values of our culture is perfectionism. And so to reach self-actualization is I think culturally and interpreted as to be like this high sense of self, like higher being up above on the top of even the hierarchy, right? Like the hierarchy, let's not even start on that. But I think it's actually just to know yourself. Like to me, my values-based definition of that is just to know yourself, to be grounded in yourself, and to be that commitment to that becomes before other things, and that you're up to bring that. So I'll blame Maslow.
And I want to continue with that. You said it comes before other things. What if you were to draw it out? If you were to create, it's not a hierarchy. If you were to create a schematic of this, what would you put and where?
Yeah, I mean, I did say before, I suppose it's nested really, like, but at the center and at the outside, I think is us, ourselves. Like we're in the center of it, but we're also, everything's nested. We're nested in, but everything's nested in us. Like our business, our relationships is nested in us. And we're so nested in the middle. So it's all about us.
I love it.
It was really interesting. And I know you talked about selfish recently. I was listening to the Will Smith story,
The book?
and he talks about, this therapy session where he and Jada go together and they're asked to put, what are your top 5 priorities or whatever it is. And Jada's like, the kids, Will, then me. And Will's just like, me. And I was just like, when that first hit me, I was just like, what an asshole. Like, what an asshole. No wonder you're related, like I brought all my judgment. And hat tip for anyone out there that has a bit of judgment stuff, because we all do. Again, self-actualization doesn't mean you get rid of your judgment. It means, to me, it's an opportunity to know, what did that tell me? And it told me a lot about myself and my own values. And I've been sitting with it, and it's really, I mean, I listened to it a while ago, but it's been sitting there because whenever I come up against it and I think, but actually, what if that is the absolute definition of self-care, of self-love that we parrot?
Yes.
Is us first. So, I'm looking on Will a bit kinder. As a, I suppose my parent brain, because as a mum, like I'm like, and I don't know if it's mum specific, but I am a mum, so I'll say as a mum, like, I don't know if I could, on a if I had to write it down.
With the kids.
But again, even that is sometimes like, because I'm supposed to, like I should be putting that first. But actually in my actions, when I live into my values, a lot of it is putting me first. I mean, I can't leave and go and live in my cabin in the woods by myself like I'd like to. But I can take those moments. And, iced coffee time, I mentioned that in my thing on one of my Nobles, which you talk about in the ID Intensive. Plug, great program. But having your Nobles, I didn't go set out to be that. But this was part of being seen, heard, and known, right? So it's like at a micro level, it's this moment where I just take a moment in my day to ground and rest and take a breath. And I just like how iced coffee tastes. And my little sensitive
all year long
gastrointestinal system can't have hot coffee. But at a macro, the next level up, at the meze level, I think that's the next one. It shows my kids that I have needs. This is my time. They know what iced coffee time is. I don't know if I told this story last time I was on. I don't know if we talked about iced coffee time. But anyway, there was this one moment where I realized, yes, my work here is done, where I was out on the deck having my iced coffee time. My little hyper connector kiddo was like looking for some connection from me. I'm like, I'm just having my coffee time, and then we'll do, often if she's home, I'll do a little connection first because she's going to need it. Anyway, she goes over to her sister and says, oh, do you want to play? And she goes, I'm having my iced coffee time.
Your work here is
done.
My work here is
done. So like at that level, but then at the bigger level, it's like, it's writing my name on the list first. It's actually changing that cultural, social norm of who says that mums have to put their kids first. And I'm not saying you don't have to, but I think that we have the opportunity to ground in our own values and say, what does that actually mean? And we don't have to write it down. We don't have to do the list. That might feel uncomfortable, but with our actions, we can like actually put ourselves first, not just the pretend, fill up your cup so you can fill somebody else's. Put on the not that, surface level stuff, but actually deep in yourself. How do you act? How do you show up? And how do you feel? And like, so yeah, anyway, so I've been a bit kinder to Will Smith in my head and judgments as I've kind of grappled through it and worked through it. I'm not there yet. I'm not at Will level, but, and I think that what I would say is like he had that, but then he also had a lot of the cultural values of him, of all of his identities and his, like there's other stuff that goes on. I don't think, maybe, and we can look at his choices and go, well, that's because you're a selfish dickhead, because you put yourself first on the list. It doesn't have to be that.
If you folks have not listened to this, kind of like, no, I have a bunch of things to say. I'm going to push this button so the thing doesn't go off again. If you folks haven't, if you haven't read Will's book, and you're interested, I would recommend it and listen to it. It's actually very cool when you listen to it because it's him, but he brings in the music side of things, and it's actually just like it's like an experience. I love that it gives context to things as well, because shortly after the book was released, that's when he smacked Chris Rock in the face, and there was just no. I'm not here to condone or whatever condemn anything, but just there's context given to someone's life by this book. Is it written by him? Yeah. So it's, based through his lens, but there's context for things. And I that part did stand out to me, but in the way that I was like, well, yeah, duh. Like, and that's also why you've had your success, like, because you're first in the list. But I love this nested conversation because so much in how I think people view things, or we're taught to view things is in this binary of, if you're putting yourself first as a mom, that means that you hate your kids. There's no like, you're putting yourself first, which means that maybe you went to therapy and now you can actually relate and you can hold space, whatever you want to consider that space, that phrase to be, and you can, show up in a way that is best for all and helpful for all parties. It's just like, if you are putting yourself first, that means you hate your kids and you would like throw them in the river. And I'm like, why is that? Maybe some. Certain days, right? I don't understand why that's the thing that's said there. I love this concept of putting yourself first, mainly because I actually don't believe that, or rather, let me flip it. I believe that all actions are self-serving, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. So even if we look at like me choosing to take care of Rupert, I do that because if I didn't, I would feel bad. It's not like I am this, like, I don't even know for certain if I believe that like altruism actually exists. It's like, we're doing it because if I didn't, I would feel so bad. So there's like a part of that. And I don't think it's a bad thing, right? I like taking the time that Laura Jean does and sitting and thinking about these things. So can you then blend the two for me, Laura Jean, and this idea of nesting, or being nested and communities of care? How does that overlap?
Yeah, I think there's the piece of, we often think of what you were saying about the binaries, but we often think of things in competition to ourselves. So like, well, if I take care of me, then I'm not taking care of my, if I'm doing that. And then we've got that next level of story of like, oh, but I take care of me to take care of the kids. So, there's the just like, but coming to that point of holding the both end of, I can do both. And sometimes I have to do one or the other. And sometimes I can't always do that. And sometimes I'm going to do a really shit job at both. And sometimes, all of that kind of stuff. So it's that both end. And so that's why I like the idea of nesting, and kind of like, those like, if you think of like concentric circles, so like nesting in kind of like that sort of space. And so I think if we think about if I think about how I think of like an ecosystem of care, is that me as a human, I'm nested inside other spaces. So like, you and me in this conversation, and then we're nested in everyone who's listening to us, nested inside like the podcast world, if we want to go down that nest, or we're nested inside these different groups. So like, it's different. And even that, it's like, it's not like a real actual visual, because it's like millions of different spots that we can be nested in or nested inside. And so with our ecosystems of care, it's like that opportunity, if you think about even if you want to think about like the little babushka dolls nested, like we're held.
That's exactly what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, like
That's
you
exactly.
can get, see, it's because we're twins, right? Like you get the opportunity to be held, but also hold as well. So I like that part, because if you think about even like a bird nest, a nest, it holds it holds the little bubbas, little eggs, and the birdies and everything. So they only build it for like when they're having their eggs. They don't necessarily live in their nests all the time. It's just for when they're having their little bubbas to hold them. And so, yeah, I feel like that is probably something that comes up for me when I think about how it relates into ecosystems of care.
That's phenomenal.
And also it's that cultivating it, right? Because I think we do all want to be seen, heard, and known. And we do all want, people often talk about it's so hard to find friends as an adult or whatever, but and if we go back to that selfish thing, we kind of feel like we can't ask for what we need or ask for what we want. And I feel like we can create ecosystems of care where we don't always have to ask. Actually, I was talking to James Livia a few months ago, and I was talking about my garden, of course, because I was talking about garden, and just like the feeling. And then I followed up the next day, and I was sharing with them. I was like, yeah, it's because that my garden like holds me, like I feel held. I have a sense of being held when I'm in it, and my needs get met. I can ask my garden, which might sound weird to people because it's a garden, but it's our idea. I can ask my garden for needs to be met, and just being there, it meets my needs without me asking. And that is what I think an ecosystem of care is, because I want spaces where I don't always have to ask for what I need, but also where I'm seen, known, heard enough that it's not like I'm expecting people to use mental telepathy, because that, again, there's that binary. It's
yes.
Well, I don't want to have to ask, so you better bloody know, versus cultivating these spaces where the aim or the idea of it is to hold people and to care for them and to relate in a way so that when it doesn't happen in a way that you like, you can let people know. Or when it doesn't happen in a way that you like, you have the grace that you're held in this space that you can be like, well, I know this was where they were coming from because I know I see them and I hear them. Yeah, that's what's coming up for me as you ask that question.
Profound, folks. I'm sitting here and I'm going back. I keep going back to the nesting dolls because it's just the easiest. But one of the things you said about the opportunity to be held, but also holding, and in my mind, I take it a step farther, and I'm like, because there's like a size thing because of physics. So if we have like a tangible, concrete thing, then like the thing has to be smaller to fit inside. But when we extrapolate this to humans and relationships, it doesn't need to be that it can be just, the same things as holding and being held. And I'm like that introducing that to it, I'm like, that's so cool. And yes,
it's the first reason I didn't go to babushka dolls, because there is there's like this figure, and then the bigger one never gets held by anything else, right?
No,
but really,
it gets dropped.
Everyone needs to be held. Yeah, it gets a crack in it.
Exactly.
Everyone takes care of that little bloody baby one.
Everyone. But it is so cute. Entire stack. All of them.
And even people, it's like, don't lose the baby one. The baby one's the most important. Which, culturally we do have that. But yeah, like so I'll work on thinking about something where we're held and hold. It's probably a water thing. I have to play around with it.
You let me know.
I'll noodle on it.
You let me know. I feel like it's got to be a garden thing.
Well, if we use the bird's nest, the nest holds the eggs, but the nest is held by the tree.
Exactly.
Or whatever it's in.
Oh.
So we could use that one. We'll use that for now. Let know if I find a better one. Or a more fitting, I should say, no hierarchy.
So intentional with the words, and it makes me so happy. If we zoom out again, but also zooming in, because I want to stay with this ecosystems of care. And I think we already answered it, but repetition is very important for me. If we're looking at cultivating this, and then the next thing, I'm going to put it out here so that in case, I wrote it down, but just in case, we're also going to talk about cultivating versus creating, because that was a really cool part of the discussion last time. But if we're thinking about these ecosystems of care, what would you say is the initial action item for cultivating that?
Ooh. Knowing yourself again. No, but you don't need to know yourself to start it, but I suppose it's asking. It's knowing your needs as well. Like there's a lot of work around that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's a first. I think it's all like it's tenderly, maybe like the mycorrhizal layer, which extends and weaves around the base and roots of trees. It doesn't grow. It doesn't like push through. It just kind of like infiltrates with not nefariously, or
exactly, not in a bad
maybe
way,
sometimes because it is like does feed off things, but it also helps us very mutualism. I don't know if there's a first. I think start like, you know, we could to probably start where you're at, like what's available capacity resource wise. Maybe it's just with you being,
I like that,
caring for you. Maybe it's asking, you know, I think of like my early mum phases and stages, and what I needed to cultivate then was really different. So I think it really depends on the season of life, but also depends personally on where you're at, resource capacity. Like, you know, I talked about the produce share that I set up, which is one of my very intentional activities I did. And not everyone's got the capacity or the desire. Not everyone wants to share produce, but you know, you find your own thing, knitting, crochet, whatever. But like, where can you start, or and you can start with your values as far as like, you know, mapping them out, thinking like, where am I acting into my values and where do I want to act or live more into them, and maybe start there. Like if it's connection, if it's, you know, maybe it's around work, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's around personal stuff. I don't know. I don't know if there's a first step. Yeah.
I'm interested
You
in
got
this.
me.
I'm looking
you
up.
Stumped me. Not stumped me,
I'm
but I'm just
looking
like,
up.
yeah.
There's a spider and a bee. And I'm like, I'm invested in this. I'm trying not to, but I'm like, that's a battle that's happening there.
It's nature playing out.
That is, exactly. I'm
We
like,
are
let it
nature.
go. I'm letting it rock here. Like, I'm not going to intervene here. But if we circle back to this, I feel like an argument can be made in my head. I'm making an argument to myself about it. If I had to pick a starting point, yes, you can only start with where you're at. But if I had to pick a starting point, and if I'm thinking of like what allows the other things to, because it is, you know, cyclical and such. But I really think that what you said earlier about seeing, knowing, hearing yourself is so profound. And because you can't, in my opinion, it would be very difficult to ask for something unless that thing that you're asking for initially is like, I need this space. I need help with cultivating the capacity, the space, so that I can take a beat to see and hear and know myself and then go from there. But I feel like that at like a foundational level, because also thinking about the nesting, like I love that idea of you in the middle and you on the outside there. And I'm like, if we haven't started leaning into that and giving ourselves space to feel like we belong within it ourselves, I feel like it becomes very difficult to do anything else from there. Not that it's wrong or you can't, but if someone was like, where would I start? I'd be like, with yourself.
Yeah, I think that needs to like accept, and wherever you are along that, like even if it's just firstly accepting you have needs, that's okay.
That's
But
huge. That's huge, man.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. And then just that would be where I would start. Like, what are your needs, or where are you not being seen? Like, if we come back to that piece, like what parts of you aren't being seen, heard, or known? What are the conversations that you feel like you're not having, or what are the bits of you where there's no other human, no space where that is? And I really, the first time I came across kind of the start of this idea of concept around was like the concept of communities of care, which is a very specific call from marginalized groups around, or under resourced, let's say, around resourcing and things. The first time I heard it was in early season of motherhood, and I was like, motherfuckers, I'm like looking after I'm caring for more people than I can. Like, I was just like, my first visceral reaction was, no fucking way. I have got no more to give. And so I've sat with it for a while, but also I've recognized that in a true community care or ecosystem of care, people are held when they are in that space and phase. And when you're in different seasons, you have more to give, maybe, and it's not even about giving. And this is the thing too, I want to take away from that idea of care, because often we think care for. We can care for people without taking care of. And that was a nuance I had to kind of learn to be able to really feel comfortable with using this word care in when I talk about ecosystems of care. So care for rather than take care of. So I should,
that's good.
Insert that piece in there, because my first piece was like, I can't take care of it. No, I can't even take care of myself. I haven't showered in 5 days. Like, what? Yeah. So yes, we can care, and care can be more than just that cultural idea of taking care of. It can be take care as in slow down. Like that's one of the, iterations of care that I really like.
Yes.
Like if we get word nerdery and start looking at the word, like what does it mean? How do we use it? Care, and like, it can just be like respecting things. Here's my book, take care of it for, like, and what I mean by that, you don't have to tuck it into bed, read it bedtime stories, give it about, like, I just mean like, could you give it back to me so that it's in no condition? So that's more about respecting the book, the thing, but also respecting me and our relationship and relate. So like, yeah, I suppose when I talk about that, I'm just probably glad we got to this piece of nuance, that it's not ecosystems where we take care of each other. It's where we have care and we slow down. And
good. It's fucking good. I want to keep going on with the word nerdery, the nerd wordery,
nerdery.
That cultivate versus create. What do you got for me?
Right. Our culture, I'll come back to it, or the systems
the
we're
eyebrows
a part of.
For me.
Yeah, well, if you're on YouTube, you get the whole effect. I did say to Shantae, I actually brushed them for her today because I was like, oh, they're going to be on video and they'll be doing a lot of dancing, so I better get them in form. Normally, like I'll like do like an idea video and I'll be like, doing the little caption-y thing afterwards, and you have to like watch yourself a million times.
Watch yourself.
God, my eyebrows, like I'm like, they're crazy. They've got a mind of their own as far as how they move, but also like they curl. Like I've got curly eyebrows. Like what? So like the end curls up, so like they don't just sit flat. Anyway, eyebrow tangent. Sorry about that one. So the eyebrows are dancing. If you want to see them, they've also been brushed. And cultivate versus create. So like all around us is this idea of like take action. And I know, when you say talk about action, because I know you, and this is like where knowing somebody and their values, I know what you mean by that, and that kind of action of really, which is, I feel like it's almost like just the physical manifestation of knowing yourself is how I'll put your version of an action. But that whole idea of like, we talked about it when we chatted on my podcast, the do the most, do the more, like more action, most action, move forward. Like, so creating, while I think if we looked at one of my probably most used websites on my phone is like the etymology, which is like the origin of words. Probably when we go back to the start of the word of creation, it's a different thing. But create now is really about almost like a process we're in control of bringing something into being, right? Like we create content. We have an idea, and you talk, this is amazing. You just brought something into life. It takes as long as it takes. And so like when we think about it from that point of view, it's like this process we are, I won't say control because I think control is an illusion, orchestrating, where we're choosing next steps, blah, 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 blah. So all that. So that's creation. And even when we're being, I suppose, creative, we have an intention culturally now of something coming out of that. Like creation, the word, as we kind of use it now, something will exist after we've created, right? And when it comes to wanting to have these ecosystems of care or a business or something online, when we use the word create, for me, it goes to the outcome. So I'm going to create a business versus cultivate, which is about, in the gardening world, it is a gardening thing, but it means many things. So you cultivate the soil, you prepare it for plants to go in, and then you cultivate the plants. So it's in your garden, you're nurturing and you're nourishing. So it's more about the process. And I think we're both twinning on the process versus the outcome. Whereas I feel like create, while the intention of that word may not have been that, now through our cultural values or just the lexicon that we use, it means that something exists after you do it, right? Cultivating is about the process. What am I going to do? Maybe something gets created at the end, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it fails. And if we give you a little bonus word nerdery, the original definitions or the original word meaning of both success and failure. Success is to succeed. If anyone's watched that show Succession, it's the thing that comes after. So the original and non-values, like neutral definition of the word success is what comes after. And the definition of failure is when nothing comes after. If something fails, if a crop fails, it means the crop didn't grow. It doesn't mean like it's an existential crisis and you're the worst person in the world. So the meanings of the word success and failure: success, something happened; failure, something didn't. or, nothing. I'm very much paraphrasing, but that's basically what they mean. But now they're all loaded.
That's so loaded now.
So cultivate.
So loaded.
You might cultivate a success or a fail. Something might come. The seed might pop up. The seed might pop up, and then the birds scratch it out. The seed might pop up, and then it gets dry. You forget to water it, but you still cultivated the soil. You still cultivated that, and what was created, while it can be an extension, it doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't cultivate that beautifully, that you didn't care for and take care of that little seed. You cultivated that. And there's other things. I think it gives room for us to recognize that we are nested in all of those things, and they will impact on what's happening and where we're going. And so I think the word create, or that intention to create, with some things, not with everything. We're probably not going to cultivate content because we probably won't get very far. But when we're talking about things like relating, things that impact with relating, which is most things, but particularly our businesses, particularly these ecosystems of care, we can want to create them all we want. And it's a want. And what we can do, though, is we can cultivate, and we can show up, and we can choose how we will show up. We can choose the values we'll be grounded in, and how we will take care of ourselves, regardless of that success failure situation, which is, something happened, something didn't. Something happened which I wasn't expecting, whatever it might be.
So good. Question with that. What word would you put at the end of this? So if we're going to say cultivate, and yes, backing it up, because I'm writing things down as you're going, and I was like, process versus outcome. And then you were like, process versus, and I was like, good, I could cross that off. I don't have to bring that up because Lord Jean just hit it. If we're going to put language to this and reframe thoughts, if we say, let's say the language for this was like, I want to create a business, would we take it back a step and say, I want to cultivate X that would ultimately allow a business to thrive? Like, is there, what language would what would that sentence look like?
Yeah, I suppose there's both ends, because you are creating something, right? You're getting out there, you're doing things. Like, it is a very much more entity exists, right? Like, kind of like the content, an entity exists. So we create our business. The word I like around the business one is evolve, to throw another word in there.
I'm here for all the words.
So like, we probably evolve a business. But create, I think, fits there still. What we cultivate is, the process, and the outcome when we're creating is the business. It's not the things that the business leads to, right? It's the thing. It's like the things we can create is the thing we can create. Like, we aren't going to control that. So I don't know what a sentence would be for that. We are creating. What I bring back businesses, if we think of that nesting thing, like, a business is an opportunity, is a space that you hold, right, to be seen and known, but it's also a space that holds you and meets your needs. So business, I feel like, is just a tool, an instrument for getting our needs met, whatever those needs might be. They might be like physical needs or even emotional needs. So I think really then we're creating a business that cultivates a space to get our needs met, or do our best darn try.
I am so here for that, and the gymnastics that maybe you had to go through. Just rewind, folks, if you need, and listen to that again.
You just saw my process.
Yeah, I'm like, it is important, because the reason I asked the question is, as a coach working with people, you can look to highlight certain things and put emphasis on. I'm not going to control their process, but we can look to really highlight things. Even in the content I create, if I talk only about the outcome, people only want the outcome. If I highlight the process, people start being more interested in the process. And so for me, in listening to you, I'm like, how do I speak more intentionally about business so that it's not viewed as this thing? It's so that it's not viewed in a way of, loaded thing. It's not viewed in, and people are going to view it however they want. But I think that I can still put things out into the ether in the way, so that I am happy about how that gets portrayed. So that's where that question came from with that. But staying on the topic of business, you have created something, Laura Jean, and I think you're presenting it today.
I am, when we're recording. Yeah, that's one thing I've created. I've created many
What
things.
Is it? Can you talk about that?
Today I'm just doing a webinar. Just a webinar.
Just a webinar. What is that? Let me know.
Today's webinar is marketing without manipulation. So
tell me more, Laura Jean. I asked this question intentionally. Well, two parts. One, because I want you to pitch your shit. But two, you did a phenomenal post, I don't know, yesterday, 2 days ago. And then we had a conversation in the DMs. And you were like, your defensive, not to me, that person's defensiveness is not my confusion. And I was like, that's so good. Can we talk about that?
So marketing without manipulation. So basically what I see often for health professionals, particularly because I'm a health professional, is that's a stuck point. Like the values that we have as clinicians and the values that we see being used in marketing, particularly in the online space, is a massive disconnect. And so if we go back to that binary a couple of conversations ago, we see the option is either we ditch our values and market in the way we're being taught, or we don't market. As neither of those are going to be sustainable, and they're definitely not going to be regenerative, but neither of those are going to take us where we want to go, right? So I like hanging out in the middle, but also it's not a binary anyway. So we're just going to talk about what even is marketing? Why does it feel icky? So going back to those, and it's all about values, spoiler. And how do you find your way that works, however you want to define it for you, and it gets you what you want. And it is going to be about cultivating those spaces, and also talking about like these are the strategies I suppose that we see used in traditional marketing, and actually then I'll just be like talking about how do we put the relating into those, like how do we flip it? Okay, that's a strategy, it works. How do we make sure we're doing it grounded in our values? If we're going to use some, we might throw in the bin, but if you're grounded in your values, how will you use it, and what will it look like to do that with the relating being the kind of driver? So that's kind of the webinar. So I did do a post the other day, and I knew I've had this post in my head for ages, and I was like, I knew it would be work for this. And it was an intentional drop. I knew it would get a few eyes on it. I actually thought I'd get maybe a little bit more, but I've cultivated an ecosystem of people who,
your people, it's your people.
Yeah. So for context, I just put a thing up talking about manipulation in marketing, because that's what the roots of marketing of the online space and the current kind of paradigm is manipulative, right? It's based on like a couple of like white dudes read this dudes get a book about like dating, winning the dating game. I think it's called The Game. There's that, and then there's this other book where a guy like looked at what happens with marketing, and he wrote this book as so that people could actually resist to see it and resist. And so some white dudes got together and put together both of those things. Basically, this is where a lot of modern marketing is, and it looks at the psychology. Why do people do choices? And we can have that information. We can go either way, and current marketing decided to go one particular way, which is how can we use that to make more sales? And literally you can Google psychological marketing triggers, and these articles are like, and so this is how you can use this one. Like it's like we said, the quiet part, like the quiet part out loud bit is like 10 years ago with traditional marketing, like they're saying it out loud and they're like being really clear. So the point of that post was to say, hey, this is the background, like these are the underlying values of these behaviors. This is why they came about. I'm not saying that's why you're using them. And we can even talk to you. Like I know you use the early bird pricing, which was one of the things I talked about in that. But I know you and I know your values. And to me, and to tell you what you do, I would say I know you do it to incentivize, like to encourage people to take action, because that is a big part of your brand and who you are, is to get people to take action. So you have that to say, hey, if you're my people and you want to ready to take action, here you go. And here's a little bonus. Like, I like you, like that's how I see how you use that. So I was putting that up and I knew you would read it. Well, I thought you'd read it. I mean, don't assume you read everything I write.
I read it all.
And because we relate and we have a relationship, and I was very clear with my wording in that this is the background of it and this is what the impact can be. And my values definitely came through. I think I put a little slide, a little snide side of like bonus oppression, people who can't afford, So my values came through. I'm not pretending to be a neutral party. Anyway, so I got a comment that said, asked me a lot of questions. And it's like, if I parrot James Clear again, like James Clear often talks about it, about like how we pretend confusion to like, or like we ask a question because we want to lead somebody somewhere. Anyway, I was kind of like, wanted to say, did you read the caption in the post?
To say it, and I was like, I'm gonna leave it. Yes.
Because it's not what I said. Because like in it, I'm really clear. Like I don't want to. People will interpret what you say through their own values and their lens, and that's
Always.
their business, right?
Yeah, always.
Yeah. So it just, I suppose, I got to interpret it as in I'm saying things are bullshit, but I didn't say things what I said. They're based in bullshit.
They're based in. It's
that's
completely
the background.
Different.
Yep, that's the like so. If we want to get wordy, so there was some semantics. That's okay. I took my deep breath. I grounded in my values, and I was like, "Well, what do I want?" It's like, "Well, actually, no. Like, I don't want to." And was kind of, I suppose, like a snide smiley face emoji.
Yes.
That I don't have any alternatives to offer. And anyway, so I was just like, "Excuse me, but." And I just replied, I suppose, with my values. I didn't take it personally or anything, because it's like, that's your filters. You filtered it through it. And that's cool. But this is what I was saying. But I mean, sometimes I wouldn't even, I wasn't doing it in an arguing way, but just more like.
No. I saw it and I was just like, if you folks are ever wondering, things like that, I'm never the person that's like, I'm going to hop into the comments. I just screenshot things and send it. And I was like, Lord Jean, looks like somebody didn't want to read today. Bless you. People are out here being peoply, and it happens. And then we get to choose how we relate with them. But I was like, we'll definitely bring that up in the podcast episode, because I wanted to promote the webinar, because I know that you folks listening to this feel some kind of way about marketing and advertising and online business and things like that. And I want you to have all the best resources. I want you to have all the options. If we take away the word the best, I'm not taking it away. I want you to have the best resources, what I consider to be the best. And so I wanted to make sure that Laura Jean mentioned that today. This episode is going to come out way after it's done, but there's a replay and you can buy the recording. So that will be linked in the show notes. I'm cognizant of the time because I had to wrap this up as well. I'm realizing that I have a call coming up soon, but 2 questions for you, Laura Jean. Number 1, if the people want more, MOAR, of you, where can they find you?
So I hang out at Dietitian Values, and normally I don't have to spell that often. I'm talking to dietitians. So it's DIETITIAN. No C in dietitian, just in case you weren't sure.
Dude, it's hard. It's hard.
It is. It is.
It's actually very hard. I struggle with that one. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. So it's dietitian, rather than with a C. It's 2 T's. And that's where I hang out. Dietitian Values, anywhere and everywhere. That's my website. That's my Instagram. You won't find me on Facebook. Well, you can find me, Laura Jean, but I don't do anything over there. And my podcast as well, Dietitian Values, which Shantae has been on twice, repeat offender. Yeah, so people want to do that. And I will genuinely say that I really love continuing the conversation. So I'm here to converse and connect about this stuff, whether it's word nerdery, whether it's gardening, or whether it's just, I don't know what else we talked about. Lots of things. So do reach out if what I'm sharing jives, I suppose, for you. And yeah, I will have that. I've got a couple of little on-demand webinars. So if that one sounds interesting, if you're interested in things like trauma-informed business practices, I got one on that, and one around, bringing your values into parts of your business as well. And I do work with people one-to-one, so creating that space. So that is where we talk about alternatives, because I'm not going to bring out my values-based way and say this is what you should do. We would work together to find your values and where you want to do it. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of the information I put out is not very strategic. And then when I get in calls with people, like, it's often very strategy focused. But yeah,
items. That makes sense.
But it's not. Yeah, it's not necessarily what I talk about as such. But anyway, but I'm here for all of it. I'm here for the nested cultivating word nerdery conversations, all the down and specific strategies that bring you back to your values, or the actual, like, how do I make this decision? Like, had somebody recently, they were trying to choose between going back to working or staying in their business. It's like, how do I make this decision with my values? And we walked through that process. So
there's the resource that you folks maybe were looking for. And it makes sense, Laura, that you put kind of the wide out on social. And that, to me, is very in alignment with your values, because it's going to be dependent on that person. Even when I asked you before, like, hey, where's the starting point? And you're like, it depends on where they're starting and where they're at with the actual person. And so it makes sense that the things that you're putting out there are more generalized or generalizable. And then for those that are can say, yeah, this might be for me, then things get strategic and specific and obviously very actionable. So yes. Last question before we hop off. Is there anything that you want to leave the people with?
Oh, I should have thought about that. I listen to your podcast all the time. I was like, I know that's always the last question. Oh, what do I going to leave? I'll leave them with my favorite quote that I often ask. And if we circle right back to the start of the conversation, we're planting seeds for a forest we may never get to spend time on. So when you're on the edge, keep throwing those seeds out. Keep throwing out the seeds. And that's your business, cultivating. What gets created, whether the seed gets eaten by a bird or whether a beautiful forest flourishes, we don't know. But we stick in our lane, or not our lane, but focus on what we're here to cultivate, which is beautiful, whatever. I won't say forest because not everyone wants that. Whatever your thing is that you want to cultivate, go out and do that. Plant the seeds for that. And regardless of what may come, because we might not be here to see it. And that's just the reality.
Keep throwing the seeds, my friends.
Keep planting them. It's like maybe they won't, but maybe one or maybe many will flourish.
I needed that one. It's a good one. Laura Jean, as always, it is my complete and total pleasure to speak with you. All the confirmation bias. You hear me, you see me, I feel known. It's a safe space. And just thank you for everything. Thank you for all that you share with everyone else. Thank you for the time. It's freaking, 6 o'clock in the morning now. Thank you for how you show up in this world. And thank you for all that you are cultivating. Truly.
Thank you. It's nearly 7 and I can hear the kids getting breakfast going and stuff. So no one's called out yet. I did hear a little, I was like, we might have a little visitor here in a minute, but didn't pop their head in.
I love it. I love it. You folks listening, thank you. We know you could have been doing anything and you chose to listen to us. And for that, we are both endlessly appreciative. If you like this episode, if you love this episode, if you're picking up what Laura Jean is putting down, do me a solid and go connect with her. That's it. Do me a solid and go connect with her. Go relate. All right. That's all I got for you. Until next time, friends, Laura Jean and Maestro out.